"This is some race," I said, stretching down to touch my toes. "I can't even see the starting line." "They got the real runners up there," said the man who had recently introduced himself to me by saying, with a gapingly toothless grin, "Hi there, I'm 88. "What are we?" I said to 88. Conceding the toes, I grabbed onto my ankles. Okay, the lower calves. The idea is to loosen up, not pull anything. He laughed. "We're the also-rans," he said. I raised up slowly, not wanting to injure my back. Warm-ups can be tricky. Old 88 was doing jumping jacks, bouncing up and down like a Super Bowl. "Better watch out," I said sagely. "Don't use up too much energy." He laughed. "This is a cakewalk," he said. "I could run this in my sleep." I didn't answer him. Maybe when you get that old, you can't pull muscles anymore, and it doesn't take as much to keep you going. 88 looked like his weight, too. I tried to settle my butterflies. I was doing this to see if I could, one of those personal challenges that gives life its zip. When I'd registered, the young woman at the desk had asked me what classification I was in. "Homo sapiens," I told her. "No," she said. "What's your best previous time?" "Haven't got any," I said. "This is my first." She looked at me, then leaned closer and whispered, "I'd say you were a fog." "What's that?" I asked her. "A fat old guy," she said, breaking into a giggle. "So much for respecting your elders." As we lined up for the race, a man with a megaphone shouted for all new runners to start at the back. I assumed that meant fogs, so there I was with old 88. Ahead of us were thousands of lean, well-conditioned running machines, people who could touch their toes, palm the ground, veritable contortionists. Next to old 88 was a perky young woman wearing a tight-fitting top and shorts which emphasized her superior physical condition. She had a big-billed cap on her head, out of which dangled at the back a long ponytail. She looked like a real runner, and I wondered what she was doing at the back of the pack. Then I realized that she was with the double baby stroller in which were strapped two well-swaddled infants. Having nothing better to do, I examined them. As I did, a man nearby said to her, "Are those kids identical?" "No," she said with an offended tone. "They're very different." I looked again. "Boy, they sure look alike," I said. "Biologically speaking," she said tersely, "they are what are commonly called identical twins. Identical is a very misleading expression, however. They are completely different people." "Oh," I said, "I know what you mean. Sure they are." "I knew they were identical," the man said. The young woman ignored him and jogged in place behind her babies. Next to her was a man lying face down in some type of carriage, a plank on four wheels. He had a blue fiberglass helmet on his head. A woman who was with him caught me staring. "We invented this for Jim," she said. "He wanted to run in this race. It was his dream. Now he can." I tried to figure it out, but I couldn't. "Jim's a quad," she said. "He was hit by a car." "Oh, we designed this for him. You see, he can move this wheel with his teeth. He's paralyzed from the neck down, but Jim's got a bite like a Doberman and a neck like a Brahma bull." "Wow," I said. "Good luck, Jim." "Right," Jim said to the ground. He was busy stretching his neck. Next to Jim, the quad, was a man who was hooked up by tubes to a monitor on wheels. He was the man who'd insisted the twins were identical. The contraption he had was the type of screen they have in hospitals. I knew runners had fancy straps and watches to check their pulse, but this seemed rather elaborate. "Are you going to push that the whole way?" I asked him. "I have to," he said. "I'm waiting for a heart transplant." He was overweight and wearing one of those out-of-fashion violet and blue polyester velour jogging suits, the kind I imagine were popular among Hollywood producers who never got out of bed all day, sort of like Hugh Hefner's pajamas. Astonishingly, the guy lit a cigarette. Here we were, in a huge throng of avid runners armed with bananas and power bars and trail mix and imported bottled mineral water, and this guy lights up while he's waiting for a heart transplant. Maybe he was nervous. I'm on a list, he said. It's all politics. Everything is business. Everything is. Business, hearts, this race. What does that machine do, I asked him. It monitors my condition, which isn't good. I've got 95% blockage. I could go at any time, but it's also the only way the hospital could contact me in case they get a live one, unless they bump me again for another big shot. Disgusted, he took a deep drag on his smoke, threw it to the ground, and crushed it with his sneaker. Then he exhaled and lit another. It's all politics, he said. He looked like a guy who could go through a new heart in a week. You need a heart transplant and you're going to run in this race, I said. Isn't that incredible? Said a young woman who appeared from behind the monitor on wheels. I think it's one of the most amazing stories I've ever heard. Aren't you worried, I said, assuming she was his wife. It's his decision, she said. I'm a reporter. I'm here to get the story, whatever it is. He's not the only great story in this race, said a young man who was standing next to a bald guy. What, are you a reporter too? I said as a joke. Yes, he said. I'm running along with Dave here. Dave was the bald guy. I said, Hi, Dave. Hi, said Dave. Tell him your story, Dave, said the reporter. Listen to this. I run this race every year, Dave said. I finished second last year. This year I was determined to win. I trained like never before. Then I started feeling weak, dizzy. I went in for some tests and found out I had leukemia. Oh my God, I said. I'm sorry. That's not all, said the reporter. Tell him the rest of it, Dave. And they told me I was HIV positive. He's got AIDS, said the reporter, on top of leukemia. What do you think of that? That's terrible, I said. Isn't it? Said the reporter. I told you. Isn't that the worst thing you've ever heard? It's okay, Dave said. I'm dealing with it. This guy is a portrait of courage, the reporter with him said. He's amazing. I just want to run, said Dave. This is the human spirit, said the reporter, at its finest. We get it. You don't have to overdo it, said the female reporter. I don't have to, he said. This story tells itself. But the chemo really takes it out of me, Dave said, and my lungs aren't very good. I'm not sure how I'll do. I'm not even sure if I can finish. I know what you mean, I said. All I want to do is finish. You'll finish, Dave, his reporter said. You can do it. Up ahead there came something that sounded like a shot. Was that it? I said. I strained to look over at the runners up ahead of us, dressed in their fancy, full-length, skin-tight, shiny black and neon-striped, lycra spandex running suits. I was wearing old sweat clothes, fog apparel. There was a sea of fancy, full-length, skin-tight, shiny black and white, black and neon-striped lycra spandex running suits ahead of us, and that sea began bobbing, and then the sea slowly surged away. Here we go, said old 88. Though the sound of the shot was faint, it startled one of the twins. It awoke and began to cry. The last thing I wanted to do was run 6 miles alongside a bawling baby, but the crowd before me was too dense. I could not make my way forward. Slowly, very slowly, we drifted toward the starting line. Motion seemed to further disturb the child, and its cries increased. Is that kid going to cry the whole way? Snapped the heart transplant guy. Do you intend to smoke the entire way? The perky young mother snapped back. I don't appreciate the smell or the toxicity. I'm not doing it for your appreciation, lady, transplant said. Those two glared at each other. The baby shrieked, and the man lit another cigarette. I studied the way the quad gripped the crank on the wheel with his teeth and pulled himself forward. His progress seemed agonizing. He does a lot better downhill, said the woman who was with him. The transplant guy was already perspiring, plodding heavily, sucking on his cigarettes, pushing his monitor along, paying more attention to the screens than where he was going. His reporter was running easily alongside him, taking notes. I was going to suggest that someone call 911 for an ambulance because it looked to me that he'd drop dead inside of 5 minutes, but I said nothing. It was his life and his reporter's story. Dave's reporter was also jogging easily, along with shouting encouragement. Dave did look weak and nearly fell as we crossed the starting line. AIDS and leukemia, the poor guy, a real double whammy, lightning striking twice. I could see he too had tubes in his arms, and he was holding several of those plastic bags they use for blood and glucose and medication in hospitals. "Hold him up, Dave," his reporter said, and Dave responded by raising the bags above his head. "Attaboy," the reporter said, and Dave dizzily advanced. Old 88 and I were running pretty smoothly. "Nice day," he said. "Yes, it is," I said, but I wasn't interested in making small talk. I wanted to move up. I didn't belong back here. The pack of runners before us was still crowded, but I knew it would thin out as the race wore on. Then I could begin passing people, making my way forward, driving through to the finish, now 6 miles distant. I felt a rush of motivation. I not only wanted to run a strong race, I wanted to put enough distance between me and this crying kid so I'd be out of hearing. "Christ, what a racket," the transplant guy said to the young mother. "Does he ever stop?" She said, in the same offended tone, "and yes, she stops when she gets tired. I'm sorry if it bothers you." Her tone of voice indicated that she meant quite the opposite. "Oh, no problem," he said. "I enjoy hearing little kids cry." "You look like the kind of man who would," she said. "Did it ever occur to you that perhaps your secondary smoke is irritating her?" "No," said Transplant.